Musical Talk, the UK's independent musical theatre podcast. Hello and welcome to another edition of Musical Talk. I'm Thos and I've again been thinking about what would happen if we had more opposites in musical theatre. The irony being that the hot Mikado is actually already very cool, whereas the cool Mikado, by its reputation, is very much not. The Cool Mikado is something that we probably need to be talking about on another occasion. It's a Michael Winner film adaptation of The Mikado, featuring Frankie Howerd as Coco, and featuring Stubby Kaye and Lionel Blair, amongst others. And it is all filmed in the 1960s, and I'm sorry to say, not considered one of the great cultural high points of the 20th century. Whereas there is a very strong argument that The Mikado, the original by Gilbert and Sullivan, is very much one of the great cultural high points from the 19th century because it still gets revived. The whole canon of Gilbert and Sullivan is sometimes referred to as operetta, although it's really more of a British form of opera bouffe or comic opera. But operetta is a handy shorthand term for a style of musical theatre which is, for the most part, no longer with us. But its echoes and its legacy live on. And today's episode of Musical Talk is really all about how that, let's call it pre-war sound, can still find resonances in the 21st century. And in particular, I'm going to be talking about a show that I saw at the Edinburgh Festival Fringe in 2024 called Savoy. Everybody's doing it. Now, when you see the name Savoy, you might naturally think of the Savoy Theatre and the Savoy Operas, another term for the Gilbert and Sullivan canon. But actually, what we're going to be talking about today is nothing to do with Gilbert and Sullivan, but much more stomping at the Savoy, or at least that style, era, and one might almost say epoch. It's a show that's very hard to describe, but it generated lots of wonderful feelings in me when I saw it. And by feelings, not just emotional feelings, but also feelings of atmosphere, because it was able to evoke a sense of end of 19th century fin de siècle decadence. It was able to provoke the complacent Edwardian era. It was able to evoke the naughtiness and satire of the Weimar Republic and its cabaret scene. It's a very heady mix. So, how can one describe Savoy Everybody's Doing It? Well, you could do worse than looking at the actual description in the Ed Fringe website for 2024. This is how the show was described by its own creators. Get ready for blushful stories of passionate affairs, mischievous gossip and racy romances. This vigorous and unapologetic new musical relationship comedy tears the illusion of modern marriage to pieces through its uplifting collection of world-famous operetta songs staged with a brave contemporary twist. The musical lineup includes songs from pre-World War West End and Broadway hit operettas, Ball at the Savoy, Riviera Girl, and more. Eastern European cultural heritage meets Western contemporary musical theatre in this cabaret-style interactive show by Julia Joy. And Julia was the writer and the director, and we'll be hearing from her in just a minute. And the show Savoy Everybody's Doing It has its own website, so you might want to go along and look at that. It's to be found at www.savoymusical.com. And the website describes the show a little bit more fully, and I'm going to share that with you because I think it adds another layer to our understanding of what the show is and was about. Norelia Riddell, the half-human, half-divine narrator with superpowers and insights into all things relationships, delights in manipulating a cast of four mortals around her for her own amusement. She draws inspiration from iconic literary characters such as Puck from A Midsummer Night's Dream, Tinkerbell from Peter Pan, and Esther Perel, the globally renowned couples therapist. And it says, and I think this is very amusing, you'll like it if you've ever been in love, if you've ever been in a relationship, if you've ever want to be in a relationship, or if you don't want to be in a relationship, if you're married, if you're not sure what you think about marriage, if you've ever had an affair, if you've never had an affair, if you've ever been that third person, if you have no idea what you're doing. And if that doesn't include you, I'm surprised. It includes pretty much everybody. And of course that extra explanatory text gives you a sense of what the options are for the it that everybody is doing in Savoy. I enjoyed the show so much that I had the great pleasure of sitting down with 3 of the creatives behind it at the Edinburgh Festival Fringe in 2024. They were Julia Joy herself, who was the writer and director, Will Thompson-Brandt, who's the associate director, and Samuel MacDonald, who's the musical director. And together, the 3 of them, with me, had a really interesting conversation about the show and about the world of music, and indeed the era and the epoch, as I said, that it inhabited for Musical Talk. I do hope you'll enjoy this fabulous conversation with 3 very talented people. As we discussed, Savoy. Everybody's doing it. Musical Talk, the UK's independent musical theatre podcast.
So hello, my name is Julia Joy. I am the mum of Savoy. I have written the script, I directed it, and I've done many more things, including being a part of it as an actor as well, and my pronouns are she, her.
I'm Samuel MacDonald. I am the musical director, arranger, partly composer, and pianist for Savoy, and my pronouns are they, them.
My name is Will Thompson-Brandt. I'm an actor and associate creative on the show, and everyone knows me as Tig. My pronouns are he, him.
Now, thank you. It's lovely to speak to you, all 3. And also, it's lovely to have the sort of wealth of experiences and connections with this wonderful show, Savoy, Everybody's Doing It. But I think I have to start with you, Julia. Would you care to describe the show as you envisaged it? And then in a minute we'll also talk about how it came to be. But, you know, what will people in Edinburgh be seeing? And what... I mean, I know because I've seen it and I loved it.
So I think the best way to explain it is that there's a book written by someone called Esther Perel, which is called The State of Affairs, Rethinking Infidelity, which I read last year, and it has been a massive influence on my life. Very inspiring. And basically, all it does is offers thoughts on what marriage is today and how marriage used to be something in the past centuries and how that today has become something a bit more complicated than that and a bit harder to, well, just maintain as it is, really, because we need to be so many things for each other. We need to be best friends, we need to be lovers, we need to be each other's therapists, we need to be, you know, we're going to be business partners, we'll have a mortgage together, we'll try to have kids together, we'll be parenting together and all of that.
Collaborators in lots of different fields, actually.
Exactly,
yes.
And the complexity of that is just basically something that's a lot of pressure on how people approach, well, relationships and marriage really these days. So that's where the thought process comes from. And I myself am married. I've got a wonderful partner to explore all of this with. And we slowly started to dive into what this means for us, and then it all started to appear as a show, really, a script in the first place.
Did you always think it was going to be a show? Did you think actually there's something in here that I can sort of metamorphose into a stage production?
I think my brain just automatically goes there. Like whatever really influences me or inspires me, it starts to take the shape of some sort of a show in one way or another.
I like your thinking.
It is wonderful because I think it's also, it's a wonderful way of processing life around you, really. One would say a coping mechanism. But yeah, so that's
from the cradle to the stave. Yes, I know.
Exactly.
Thank you.
So that's the subject, really. Unpicking modern marriage, one could say, maybe. It's quite hard to explain, to bring it down into a few words, because it's a huge topic, and really all it wants to do is ask questions and offer a way of thinking that moves away from patterns that we have just simply inherited and have never questioned. Or if we have questioned, maybe we've questioned it separately, not together as partners, but now this is already me going into my interpretation of it, which I don't think the show wants to do. The show wants to offer thoughts.
But it has to start somewhere, and it has, and it's really actually interesting to hear that it comes from a book, and not a textbook per se, but a book which is an exploration of a way of looking at the world. And that is what's very interesting coming out, I think, already from this conversation. And then plus the added flavour of let's turn this into a show, the Mickey Rooney moment is always there, isn't it? Just want to explore a little bit more on that, and then I'd like to bring everyone in. But we've spoken blithely about it being a musical. But of course it's interesting in the sense that it advertises itself as using as its basis, and I know that, Sam, that you've moved it on, but operetta. And that is a really unusual choice, or so it seems to me, in Britain. Because when people say operetta in this country, I think they think Gilbert and Sullivan.
Yes.
They might think Ivor Novello if they're old enough, and then it stops. That's what an operetta seems to be, and that's fine. Gilbert and Sullivan is a magnificent tradition, but that's not the only way of doing operetta. It's also a very narrow British view, because operetta ran in parallel to musical theatre at least until the war, in terms of being, by which I mean the Second World War, in terms of writing, and probably beyond. That's my ignorance, I'm afraid to say, speaking. But it was always there. The Frimmels and people like that, the student prints and things like that, they run in parallel and were put on Broadway all the way through that period. And people have sort of forgotten that side of musical theatre, taking the broader sense of musical theatre. And of course, it still lives very broadly. Forgive me, on the continent, to use an old-fashioned phrase, in Europe, it's still very strongly part of the musical tradition, or so I understand it to be. But here it isn't. And so, selling something as an operetta is, well, it's one of the things that drew me in. I thought, this is fabulous. This is something I want to see because no one else is doing it. So, ironically, although everybody's doing it as your subtitle, the way by which you've decided to put it on the stage is not common, but terribly successful. Why that? Why operetta? And let's call it operetta cabaret, perhaps, if you don't mind, as a kind of shorthand. It's operetta cabaret. If you're the inventor of that, you want to patent that quite quickly. But it's quite an interesting take. Was it always envisaged it would go in that direction, or is that something that came out? Because it's fun.
Absolutely not. It's not intentional. I think it's the very lucky marriage of two different directions.
Ironic under the circumstances.
Exactly. Absolutely. One of them being the content in terms of marriage and how we look at marriage these days and how we're trying to unpick that, which is the story itself, the narrative. And on the other hand, the operettas and the musical background of the show basically comes from an idea a couple of years ago, which stems out of my desire to be able to bring something to the musical theatre landscape of the UK that I can do authentically, because I'm originally from Hungary, and operettas in Hungary from the Austro-Hungarian Empire,
of course,
has a great heritage there. It's very rich, and also it's somewhat forgotten even there. The way it's done, the way it's happening in these days is still it's a way of keeping the tradition, but it hasn't really been looked at as a musical material that can be still used, that can be relevant.
It's not live per se, or
exactly.
Until now.
Yes, exactly. Which I find quite contradictory, really, because the original aim of the genre was exactly to reflect on contemporary issues, but also on the love life of people in the early 1900s. Really.
Well, I think of Offenbach. I know he lived in France for most of his career, but I agree. There's also a whole world of satire in there as well,
yes,
and satire is nothing more than just a reflection of society, isn't it? So,
exactly.
This is really interesting. So, by the way, I like this idea of breathing new life into sort of genre which have ossified a bit. Music hall in this country has done that. Now whenever you see a music hall, it's always a recreation of what a music hall show would have been like from 100 years ago. There's someone with a gavel and a toastmaster, but it isn't a live thing, or rather, the bits that have survived are now unrecognisable. So wonderful to take something which is perhaps just treading water and take it further. I've got to bring you in now, Sam, if I may, because obviously we're now into the world of the music. How was the music selected? And this is an open conversation. How it says from well-known operetta, and there's one particular one. The title that leapt out to me was "Ball at the Savoy," I think it is, which of course then also becomes quite important for the narrative elements of the show. When did you join the project, Sam? And at that stage, had the operetta part come along, and were you delighted or daunted?
Yeah, so I've not been involved in it for super long, actually. I think it was May that I was brought on.
Oh, crikey, that is quite recent.
And so both of these two, both Tig and Julia, have been developing the show for a few years, actually, because Tig's been performing in it in previous development versions of it. So, yeah, I found it really interesting getting to know this repertoire in a way, because I feel like it really is something that having studied musical theatre in academic institutions and that kind of thing, like you really get drummed into you this idea that a farmhand sings off stage in Oklahoma and musical theatre is born, and it's actually so.
Sorry, I just need to step in and say yes, but isn't that wrong?
Yes, I mean, and there's so obviously so many things that draw into it from all different areas, but I think we often forget this really important group of composers and repertoire that people obviously, and there's obviously, as we get to the war, for obvious reasons, large migration towards New York, and that's really something that feeds into what we know as Broadway now. So,
I mean, Kurt Weill is a really important person in that.
Absolutely, of course. So yeah, that's been a really interesting repertoire to use. I think all of the songs that we use from operetta were already part of this show before I was involved, so I was getting to know these particular songs, getting to know the shows that they're from, and then working on there were just a few moments of, because this version of the show as we have it now is the most sort of story led, I think, that the show's been. It's previously been kind of a cabaret with little vignettes,
almost like a review, or episodic.
Yes.
Exactly.
That's interesting. I like the through line of it now. There is you can detect, you can take as much of a musical comedy plot as you want from it, or you can take it in bits. It's sufficiently granular for you, the audience, to piece it together in a way that you want. It's like make your own jigsaw.
Absolutely.
That's almost the definition of what we were trying to aim for with the show, is to give the audience the opportunity to reflect on their own experiences and make their own conclusions.
Well, in which case, success has been achieved.
Yeah, as we've made it more of a story, it sort of became clear that there were a few moments where we needed to sort of come up with something particular for the show, and particularly the title song "Do the Savoy," which Julia and I ended up writing together for a little while, and I think that forms like a really useful centrepiece to the show now at this point.
Well, without giving too much away, the important thing about that song is, first of all, it sets up the show, but also it does allow you to understand that the Savoy is both a physical and a metaphysical place in this storytelling, or so it seems to me. And you very nicely connected it back with Ball at the Savoy, because the whole show ultimately moves towards a ball at the Savoy in whatever realistic or non-realistic way that you wish to take it.
Absolutely.
It's a canvas on which you can paint anything, I suppose. And from an audience point of view, that's quite an interesting ask, because usually it's relatively cut and dried what's being offered, and then you just have to take it at its face value and then look for greater meaning. Here, you're being asked to create the narrative in your head. Very refreshing.
And even in the very first scene, you've got one of the central characters that starts with a conversation of going, "Welcome to the space where we talk about everything we don't normally talk about."
A safe space as well, which also has a meaning. It is very interesting. It's nice multi-layered things going on here. Well, may I call you Tig?
By all means.
Thank you. Tig, now obviously it sounds you've been involved in several iterations before Sam arrived.
Yes.
How did you join the project?
Through the normal process of being an actor. Honestly,
it's a good, honest answer.
Yeah, I didn't know Yulia before this project, or Bernadette, who was also the part of the first iteration, first and second iteration, and I got an email from my agent that was like, "Hi, would you be interested? Film a thing," and then went along to the List Institute.
Sorry, did you film it on TikTok?
No. Oh.
Yeah, but you'll be using it next week.
Yeah. I can't, even as someone who doesn't use social media, I'm like, I can't not use that somehow.
Sorry, I do apologise.
No, not at all. Yes, I went along to the List Institute, which is the Hungarian Cultural Institute just off of Trafalgar Square, which is this lovely, unassuming pair of enormously heavy double doors.
There's more to it than that.
Yeah, well, there's a little curtain behind those, and for all the world, it looked like a run-down building. And I sort of poked my head in, thinking, "Is this the right place?" And was greeted by this enormous grin, which was usually just being like, "Yes, you have come. You're like, here's the audition. Come to the right place." And it just kind of went from there, really. You know.
And here we are now.
And here we are, several years later.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing. Staying with a show suggests that you've got a real connection with it as well.
Very much so. Very much so.
And what is that draw for you as an actor?
As a professional, it works in two different forms for me. As a professional, I've really enjoyed being this in-depth in a devisory process.
It's nice to be engaged, isn't it?
Very much so, but also the way that Yulia works and Sam as well in the space now is that it's a very collaborative effort. So everyone is made to feel within the entire cast that they have a voice, and that voice is equally valued and appreciated as part of the greater kind of picture that is being formed. And I've never been lucky enough to be in a process like that before. I was actually brought on as an associate creative for this specific iteration because we'd had the experience of a couple of years down the line of going, what do we think worked, what do we think didn't? And again, you know, I got a phone call kind of out of the blue being like, I've written a script for it, can you tell me what you think?
I hear the words dramaturgs.
Yeah, well, you know, and things kind of went from there. So professionally, it's been really fun to see something shape and grow. And I think for that reason, and also because we have such a strong connection as a whole cast, that it really has made it an unforgettable experience for me.
That's wonderful, actually. But it's lovely. I mean, the word you used it yourself, collaboration, collaborative. That's the best form of theatre, and because you know everyone's got different skills and things to bring to the table, and it always if it's done well, it just creates a bigger whole. I'm not saying anything profound here. You know this because you are creatives, but actually it does need to be repeated sometimes.
Definitely.
You know, we all know horror stories of writers or directors or actors who, in their own way, are divas. There's even a show up here called Diva, which you may know has got the subtitle "Live from Hell," which I think tells you where the diva has ended up. But actually, that collaborative thing just is so delightful, delicious.
It's almost magical how well we get along. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. We had a really amazing morning in rehearsals, which was a very tight rehearsal process. It was 1 week. I think you know the morning I'm talking about.
That is tight, gosh.
And there was one morning like in the middle of the week, so we only had like 3 days left of rehearsals, and we sort of had this schedule like, we want to get through this bit and block this bit and sort of choreograph this bit this morning, but we were starting with the end of the show, just set it, make sure it's doing whatever. But as we were doing it, as we were working on it, we sort of were starting to realise something about this isn't working. It's not coming together, and that led to essentially using the whole morning of like sitting down, having conversations, like talking about what we needed to get rid of. And I think it was Tig who suggested, actually, this song that we've got at the end, we absolutely love this song, but what if we just got rid of it? And if we ended with do the Savoy and this there's bits of conversation between a couple of characters that I won't describe too much. It's a bit of a spoiler. But at the end, and the way that we kind of built that morning over quite a sort of just taking that bit of time, but everyone inputting stuff. That was the best collaborative moment for me.
Yeah, and it was almost like a moment of collective therapy in lots of ways, because there are different reasons why the material connects with each of us, and I think when there are a couple of people, Charles Blythe and Jess Ryan, thank you, who have come to the show freshly for this iteration as well. And there was a lovely moment where all of us and Kilka John as well had a moment of really connecting with each other personally for the first time, and sharing those very kind of in-depth stories of why this particular moment at the end of the show means so much, and it kind of ended us all in tears just before lunch. And but in such a wonderfully cathartic way. We realised that we really had something on our hands there, and that was such an incredible moment to suddenly feel like, there's a little spark of something there,
and the power of all of us just being there, being able to be vulnerable. especially around a topic that's so loaded and has so many different layers of past, of memories, of patterns.
Societal judgments, let alone anything else.
Exactly.
Ignoring the humanity of the individual. Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's macro and micro in that sense, isn't it? I was going to say, it is actually a very humane show. It feels very modern. And people listening may say, well, hang on a minute, they were talking about operetta a minute ago, and that doesn't feel very modern. Well, it could, which draws on your point, Julia. Sorry, I've been calling you Julia, and I do apologise. I've done that terribly Anglo thing of just assuming what I see on the page is what I think it is, so my apologies. I'll try and call you Julia from now on.
It's absolutely fine. I do listen to both. There's no preference at all for me.
My apologies. Terrible assumption. So let us talk then, if I may, about the modernity of the piece. And actually there is a delight to have old and new, cheek by jowl, and looking different as a result in both cases. One informs the other and back again. The score, and this is what's so interesting to me, is we all know, those of us who know anything about operetta have a sort of sense of what we're going to get, and it's a terrible thing to say, but we sort of think slightly flowery.
Yeah.
But that's wrong, or rather, it's right not in all cases. And I'm going to ask you, Sam, to correct my terminology here, because music is not my first forte, but or indeed my piano. But I would say the thing that surprised me most, and then it didn't surprise me, because you think, oh, of course, is how raggy some of the songs are, in the ragtime sense of raggy, not as in any question of production and performance, by the way, which was pristine. But there's a lot of sort of ragtime in it, and that goes back to my point earlier that actually operetta was very much alive and well in the first 20 years of the 20th century, and ragtime is a big part of that musical development. And raggy, even to a modern ear, is both sort of set in the past, but also very, the syncopation, I think, sounds modern. I just think there's something, it takes you away from your expectation of what an operetta is. And of course, you've also added your own songs as well as sorting out some of the arrangements, by which your own songs, for the piece. Can we just explore the musical bed of the show a little bit? What is operetta and what have you done to it? What was surprising to you when you were discovering it? And this is open to all three, please. But Sam, I think obviously more you. And just to sort of to square the circle of questions about the music, and the specially written bits, because that first piece, that first song, which you just said was written specifically to sort of set the scene, is that
not
correct?
The first song, Stories of Our Own. That's it's new lyrics, but it's an existing song called London My Friend. So it's the final song. Do the Savoy is the only fully new song.
Fine, I misunderstood. Well, that first number has a dance routine in it, and that dance routine has a kind of syncopated element to it. And that's when I immediately stood up, and I didn't stand up, obviously that'd be very rude in a theatrical environment, but I stood up internally, as it were, and I thought, this is going to be playing with the genre as well. So as well as playing with expectations and exploring, it's really turning the musical world on its head. I've done a lot of talking there, but in a way I sort of wanted to set out how it came across to me. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of that, if you can remember it.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's interesting actually doing it. I'll start with it's interesting doing it on piano when it's such a obviously operetta originally would have had a massive orchestra.
A slightly richer musical breadth.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully we can get to a point at some point in the future where we're doing it at the Palladium with a 50-piece orchestra and all
that. I was going to say that was it, wasn't it? We had the running joke at the beginning when Julia showed us the script and we went, "You have a full 2-act musical here. Let's call this the Palladium version, and then let's work out what we can do for the Fringe in this much more intimate setting."
But yes, another thing that we often forget is how much jazz influenced Europe. Certainly obviously we've as musical theatre people, we've got a familiarity with cabaret and sort of Weimar, that kind of world. But yeah, certainly that. I also think, because the core of ragtime is dum dum bat bat, which I think is also in many ways the core of a lot of Hungarian folk music.
Oh, is it? There's a parallel.
Yeah, I think so.
That's interesting.
I think it's really fun to play with some of these moments of getting these really slow pink-cheeked angel, life is a cabaret, let's see, and sort of growing through these kind of speed things. So I think it's a mixture of this kind of jazz influence coming over from America and the really great thing about especially this kind of more Eastern European operetta as compared to English operetta, which obviously I also had the sort of association of operetta as Gilbert and Sullivan, Modern Major General and all of that, which is a lot of fun, but
there's more to it, isn't there?
So being able to bring in these like Eastern European, Hungarian influences particularly to music, it's such a great repertoire to do that with. And I think we've also, with a lot of the new stuff, we've sort of started to develop this kind of concept of, because a lot of the show is bluster, like the characters are sort of portraying this false version of what their romances are, and a lot of the show is about breaking down these kind of ideas of there's Nureyev has a line at one point, has anyone actually had sex on their wedding night?
Yes, it was quite a question to the audience, I noticed on the day.
Which was then great to immediately follow by, no, I actually mean with your own spouse.
But to break down this bluster in the music, a lot of as well as having this one sort of completely original song, we've added sort of sections to some of these other songs that go into a bridge, where I've used a lot more influence from sort of more modern musical theatre writers, sort of with more direct emotional expression. We get a sort of almost slightly Pasek and Paul type world in some of the harmony, and the way I often see that is as all of the kind of bluster and bravado of the characters kind of breaking away to be like, but I'm not sure what I'm doing, and I can't really work out what I should be doing, what my responsibilities are to people, and I'm not sure how I feel about this.
The confusion behind the mask and the confusion about why one needs to wear a mask. It's actually it's a double question, isn't it?
Exactly. Yes. It's all about breaking down those facades. I think.
Facade is a good word, actually. I like that. Yeah. I'll let Walton know.
And I mean, I'm certainly thinking about, with any bit of the music work in this show, I'm certainly thinking about Kandra and Ed, because I think they're obviously the masters of using these kind of using kind of pastiche of these very performative genres, and making a sort of modern idea with that. And I think if this can be a sort of an equivalent to what Kandra and Ed might do with European operetta and 2024 rather than whatever Weimar Germany and I don't know the year well enough, whenever they wrote Cabaret, and then I think that would be the perfect version of how the music works in this show.
That's a really helpful hook, if I may say, the idea of that the Kandra and Ebb idea of using a genre to frame a very different situation and then see what you can make of it. I want to explore again, though, the creative process. So you've got the music, and obviously you're tweaking it. The lyrics, I think, are fresh, or have been tweaked. So how much would you say are the original lyrics? How much are they new lyrics? How much do the new lyrics owe to the idea of the old lyrics, but with a modern twist? What's your sort of take on lyric writing?
So some of the songs have their original translation that we kept, but I think that all links back to how Sam has beautifully described the two layers of the music. I think the original lyrics have been mostly kept in the older material, and wherever we start to break out of it, that's where the new lyrics came in. And in those cases, I tried to move away completely from their original.
So you weren't constrained, so to allow you to have the freedom you need to have, because
absolutely,
presumably, and I don't mean this rudely, there won't be that much sensitivity about the point you're trying to make about let's not get caught up on, I keep coming back to this idea of societal structures in a 1920s operetta. I'm guessing more like to enforce those structures, I would have thought.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
I can't imagine one that didn't end up with happy marriages on the whole. Or rather, the idea of a happy marriage, actually, which I suppose at one level is a very good hook, but sorry.
Yes, well, exactly. So there's been a lot of work around the lyrics, and basically we tried to tweak and change anything that wanted to break away from that.
And do I think the word I'm going to struggle towards is reverence. How much reverence do you have for your original material? This might be a question for all three of you. Whilst at the same time knowing that you've got to take a hammer to some of it and bend it to a 21st century sensitivity.
Well, that was one of the interesting things about the first iteration when we took a look at it and saw kind of cabaret aspects and elements of the first what you could arguably call the first half of the show, and then the second half of the show at that time was very much almost kind of directly lifted from sections of different operettas, and particularly Ball at the Savoy, which is where that kind of aspect came from. But I remember there were distinct moments where some of the character journeys, or the things they would do and the things they would say, because of how it was written, and that was the societal norm at the time, you know, especially from like a staunch feminist aspect and all that sort of thing. There were points where I was looking at this material and being like, I'm really not very comfortable with this the kind of story that this person is telling, and it was so wonderful to see. It was so wonderful to see how it changed as part of that natural journey, when we all kind of sat down and just went, yeah, we enjoy the story that they're telling, but it's not. It is overlooking so many key aspects now, and that is the story that we want to tell instead.
So by filling the holes, but it's not just filling the holes, is it? It's actually restructuring, perhaps bending what you've got, keeping the best bits and adding new bits. Can I say, by the way, there's a show up here. It's a one-woman comedy, Madame Chandelier Saves Opera. I don't know if you've come across it, but the conceit, interestingly, I was just very reminded of it by what you said, is that she comes on. I mean, it's she's got what I call a Marie Antoinette wig. It's about 2 feet high, and it's fuchsia pink. I mean, it's, so she's going for what I would call the diva look. But she comes on and she says, opera is a wonderful art form, possibly the highest art form, and yet the only role for a female character in opera is to die or to get married, or both. And she wanted to do something about it. And it's a comedy show, but actually it makes a point, and not a dissimilar point to the one you're making. Yes. As we move on, the narratives of previous, by which I mean also the narrative of songs, isn't necessarily terribly appropriate.
True, but it doesn't mean we should. It doesn't mean we should forget those.
Yeah, don't dump.
Exactly, and that's what I love so much about the timeless element of this show, is that it's very much holding up a mirror to history in some ways, and looking and going, was any of this right? Why have we been brought up to look at relationships, or to look at certain aspects of life in a certain way? And are we still doing that? Is that still an important thing now? And that's one of the key questions that I think the show asks, especially speaking from a personal aspect. I'm polyamorous. Oh, so the concept of multiple simultaneous romantic relationships specifically. So that is something that I, over the past year, have come to realise and accept, and feel more comfortable in myself now than I ever have. But I had no concept of what that was like before, and then doing the show through this kind of lens now is really interesting, because there are so many aspects where I look and I go, yeah, why was I put into a headspace from the society I grew up in, or whatever, the
expectations,
the role models of media and all that thing that you see, where it's like one man and one woman get married and ride off into the sunset.
Heteronormatives, yeah.
Exactly, and we're so, it's wonderful that we're moving beyond like gender binary narratives and gender binaryism in general, and it's really nice and refreshing to show a piece that I feel seen and accepted and safe to explore in, from someone who's in a completely different aspect of like societal relationships.
Just to add to what you just mentioned a moment ago about time, and how time becomes quite universal in the show, I think that's also something really interesting that in the future we'd love to further explore, in terms of how it all starts from this historical setting. There's a very strong 1920s vibe.
Yes.
And
look.
Yes, exactly.
And by the way, which is sumptuous and lovely. Yes, everything looks delicious.
Thank you. We do love the costumes.
Costume designer over here.
Indeed.
Oh, yes, costume designer.
You missed that off your list at the beginning, but it does. It looks gorgeous, and the 20s also just conjures up as it is a period of glamour in the popular imagination, isn't it? So.
Absolutely. So it is there as something that is very present. But there's also an aim to deconstruct time and to get rid of a certain historical era throughout the show. And I think that's something that in the future.
So it's not rooted in that period.
No,
it just happens to take its flavours.
Exactly. But it aims to create a more of a universal time, really, that allows it to be able to pick it up today.
Yes.
With mobile phones and also telegrams.
Exactly.
It's the world I want to live in, actually. But Tig, it's really interesting what you were also saying, that your period of self-discovery overlaps with the show. Now, I'm not going to suggest I don't want to trivialise it. It's clearly not the show doing that. You're always exploring yourself because we all do at various points, or should do at various points in our lives. But there is that parallel,
Yes,
whether by design or otherwise. And you said it did sort of inform your view on it.
Yeah, it was a really interesting. It's been a very interesting year.
Yeah, I don't want you to feel you want to say any more than you need to say.
No, it's okay. We'll save that for the personal interview later.
But you are chimed in with what the show is saying. In that sense. Yes. I mean,
very much so. The aspect of allowing the audience to make their own decisions and draw their own conclusions as to the questions that the show asks is something that I think has been key, not only to me as a performer, but as a person in this 1 year on now relationship dynamic in which I find myself in. But not just for me. I think actually from the discussions we've had, and I won't share in sort of not to break any boundaries, but there are elements of where we are all at in our lives, where each person has kind of said, this has happened at exactly the right time for me because of a situation that I'm in or something that I've experienced, that the show itself is helping me process and rediscover the lens through which I view the world. And it's really nice to have that within the performers and the cast, when that's something that we want the audience to be able to have the opportunity to do as well.
Well, I was going to draw from that, if I may, but it's interesting that within a small group of people, because it is a relatively small core in your theatrical collection, from that you can draw that if it's got these resonances for you as those of you involved, then it must have similar, by extension, into the wider society. Absolutely. So it is the micro and macro again, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It really is.
And it's interesting because the more people we talk about, we just keep on running into conversations of how people immediately relate to it and respond to it. Like there hasn't been anybody so far who were like, oh no, I don't think about that. No, I don't do that.
Yes, I live in a hermetically sealed box and don't think about anything. Yeah,
exactly. It's almost like opening a little door where everybody
How did you know?
is quite happy to just join that conversation at some point, wherever they are at.
Well, I think once again that reflects societal norms, that actually they are changing at the moment, and change is always difficult for everyone at one level. You don't know where it's going, and therefore you don't know how to jump on or connect to it. But actually, given the opportunity, I still fundamentally believe in the good in people, despite the evidence. And I think it's very interesting that people want to engage with the direction of travel at the moment, or a lot of people do. Obviously, there's always going to be some naysayers. Haters got to hate. I don't have the accent to carry that off. But it's also the reverse is true, that there are a lot of people who are just quiet. But because they don't know how to connect, and actually give them an opportunity like a fabulous show and a conversation, you can actually you can help people. Obviously, yeah. I'd like to change the subject ever so slightly, although it's been fabulous. This is a much more reductive question.
We do love those.
It's great. Well, they should be easier, but they're not always. I'm going to ask you each, what is your favourite bit of the show? It could be a bit of dialogue, it could be a bit of performance, it could be one of the songs, and why, of course, which is the difficult part. But it does often show insight, I think, oddly. Even though it's such a basic question. I'm going to start with you, Julia, because it's, as you said, you're the mum. And I'm asking you to do that terrible thing, which is your favourite child.
Do you know what? That's actually really hard. As I started thinking, I had my answer, but then I had another answer, and then I had another answer, and I've got approximately 12 in my head. Just under 3 seconds.
As you started that question, I was like, please start at the other end.
I'm going to pick a few.
I think you had that right.
One of my favourite, as an actor, actor slash everything else. My character Nora Parker has her moment of saying a sentence that I think is one of the key sentences of the entire show, when Daniel, the guy she's been, played by Tig.
Yeah, I was pointing at you, but then realised it's an audio.
I was going to say, yes, you rang, darling, hello.
They've got their story of being together initially as a young couple, then breaking up, then meeting again, and constantly looking for each other over and over again, meeting again and again and again, but never quite working out, as Daniel has this obsession with marriage, but Nora does not believe in marriage. And at one point she says, "What I don't believe in is promising you that I'll be only yours forever, and then living a life in which we both drown."
Yeah.
And I think that sentence, really holds the problem that we're dealing with.
And everyone always has. You know, we know that people do change, and if you're lucky, people change in parallel, but they don't always. You know, and that's been the basis of so much drama and art and creativity for years, by which I mean centuries, really. Sorry, that's so it's a profound observation, actually.
Yes, I think I'm going to pass it on for now, and I might jump in later with my next favourite kids.
I mean, really, I will never get bored of listening to Kilka, who plays Norelia, the sort of cabaret host in many ways, singing.
She is your MC.
Yes, our MC, exactly. Singing "Do the Savoy" every night. I mean, I'm biased because it's my music, but it's it's been really great to be working with her right from the start of being on this project, and from first sort of meetings over Zoom with each other to just talking about what songs do you like to sing, where do you sort of find the most dramatic urgency in whatever we're doing, and then using Julia's lyrics for the middle section, and coming up with the lyrics for the sort of choruses, building that up and being able to then hear Kilka's amazing performance at that point, which is the culmination of everything that's come so far.
The very word, the culmination.
Exactly. The culmination of everything that's come so far, reflecting on just you could really sort of hear in her whole performance, everything that's sort of happened to her and in the show and all of this. So that's always my favourite moment to be involved in.
Fabulous.
I think for me it's two things, so I'll be real quick. The first one, as a performer, I love the absurdity, and the level of kind of absurd comedy that comes out through the world that is created, without going into too much detail. But what the first thing I love about it is those moments where we step out of that into those kind of gripping inner monologues of raw truth, such as we get from Jess and from Charles, and then from Kilka right at the very end, which I definitely won't spoil. But
it is good.
There's a final, in particular, there's a final conversation, which I can't help but have a tear in my eye every time.
And you've heard it several times, I imagine.
And honestly, I'm really glad, because we finished that particular moment looking upstage, and I'm like, great, because I need a moment to gather myself before whatever comes next. So those moments of raw truth are so gripping. And then the second thing is just to lean back into the absurdity of it, which is brilliant. and it's got to be the ad lib that has somehow made it into one of the reviews we got, which is poppycock and balderdash and avocado. Oh no, what was it? Poppycock and balderdash and guacamole. Honestly, so I think that's got to be a favourite moment.
It's nice to coin a phrase.
Yeah, apparently. Didn't expect to make it into a review, but there we go.
I'm sure that's how Shakespeare started. And I believe a second bite of the cherry is looming.
Well, I think it's been summed up beautifully. Everything that you said, I do share those moments. I think they're very beautiful. Maybe just to add an absolutely personal part. I think your underscores when they come in, especially in that last scene. I think that's the final moment that always gets me.
Yeah.
Even if for some reason up until that point maybe I somehow managed to get through in that moment, or it's just like bam.
Yeah.
And I love the fact it's still affecting you all so viscerally,
Yes.
actually. And
Yes.
it's been around for a while now.
Yes.
Which leads me to the next question, which is sort of getting us towards the end, which is actually, what is the future for Savoy? Everybody's doing it. Everybody should be doing it. This feels like a show that could be done in lots of different places. So what would you like the show to do into the future? What is possibly planned, and how can people get in contact with you?
We do have a website that's savoymusical.com with all of the official contact details up there, so that's a great way to get in touch with us. And we've got some really big plans, as we've mentioned previously. The Palladium. Nothing less than the Palladium. Yes, I think...
The Palladium Skegness. No, so good. And so presumably they will be announced online on your website and other socials?
Yes, we've got... Well, I think our best social media channel is Instagram, but we're also working on that TikTok channel.
Yeah.
At Savoy Musical, both of those.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Good, so that's fabulous. And do you yourself, Yulia, have a website? Because you do, this show is part of what you do, but I know that you've got an enormous CV, actually. Ballet is an important part of it. And, how can people find out about your other projects?
Yes, my personal website is juliajoy.co.uk, and yes, well, initially I trained as a dancer. That was my first thing. Hence the choreography in the show.
The movement is smooth and wonderful, and serves. And that's the most important thing, isn't it? We've all seen shows where choreography it's almost like the choreographer has gone out and gone, it's my bit now, I'm going to show them what I can do, where actually it's got to be part of the collaborative process.
Absolutely.
And it's the show is slinky in more than one way. It's slinky in its movement as well as slinky in its feel, if that makes sense. And it's meant as a compliment, that.
Thank you. Yes, I absolutely hear it that way. I do think that as a choreographer, it's really important for me to find compositions and movements and images really that serve the story. I don't think that, especially in a show like this, because obviously if we're talking about, for example, we've got a tap sequence.
Yes.
And obviously in the future when we get the chance to expand and
with your lovely chorus of 40 people. Yep.
Exactly. Oh, absolutely. And much longer, of course.
Out through the fire exits.
Oh,
yes. Into the Strand or wherever it is. It's not,
absolutely.
No, Oxford Street. Do carry on.
So yes, obviously we do like a bit of jazz and tap and all of that, but I also think that choreography, especially in a show like this, has to be another narrative layer basically that supports everything that's being said.
It's not gratuitous.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Sam?
Yeah, I mean, so in terms of this show, I mean, we joke about it, but I think it is a show that I think deserves and would benefit from scale in many ways, in terms of length and in terms of, I think there's a lot more that we can do with the show in terms of writing new songs, whilst also keeping the existing operetta at the core of things. I'm also working on other musicals around the place, particularly one called The Perfect Match, which I'm writing with my writing partner Mairead Dunsmore. I do the music and lyrics to this book. You can find me specifically at, I think I'm on Instagram and I still call it Twitter, I refuse to call it anything else.
All humans do.
Yes. At _Samuel_Mac_. Too many underscores there, but I was too late for the platform. MAC.
Lovely, yeah.
Lovely. And the production company that I've started with Mairead, my often writing partner, is called Matchstick Productions.
One word matchstick?
One word Matchstick.
As in a perfect match.
As in the perfect match,
quite,
exactly.
I'll take an entirely biased opportunity to just big up the musical genius of Sam. I've listened to it and it's wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
I look forward to talking to you all again then.
Yeah.
By the way.
We are sort of aiming for Fringe next year. We'll see about that. But that's a plan. At Matchstick Productions UK, all one word, is our Instagram.
Perfect.
For that.
Thank you.
I am one of those strange, enigmatic people that doesn't have any social media because it proved too addictive in the pandemic, and I decided that it was not the right thing for me. But I am I can be found professionally on Spotlight or through any of these wonderful people sat next to me.
And just for the record, then, if people are trying to find you on Spotlight, your professional name is not
Will.
Chick.
No, it is Will Thompson Brandt, and that's with a P in Thompson. And then otherwise, I'm actually stepping away from musical theatre for my next project. I'm going to the wonderful world of immersive.
Right, okay.
And joining a company called Bridge Command, which is in Vauxhall in London, done by the wonderful Parabolic Theatre. And I get to go and teach people how to go to space and crew spaceships and live out their best sci-fi fantasies.
This isn't method acting, is it?
No, I would love to say so.
Yeah, quite good. My time in NASA was really helpful.
Indeed, yes. We do have a wonderful teleporter though, where you step in through a door, and it's only one door to the room, and then a teleport happens, and the door opens again, and you are in somewhere completely different. And the glitter in people's eyes when that door opens, and we go, well, you've just travelled 22 light years, so welcome to space, I suppose. And the joy that lights up in people's eyes when that happens is nothing else. So,
well, you've given me a perfect way of finishing this episode, which is to say, not only have you created joy there, but actually, if you don't mind me saying, Savoy, everybody's doing it, created joy in me and the people I was with. And it was a wonderful show, so I can only thank you so much, A, for putting it on, and B, for talking to me about it today so delightfully, actually. That's been a wonderful conversation, so insightful and so interesting. I mean, it was interesting the tangents we went off in, all of which fed into the whole, because actually that is the great thing about this show. It's not just what it appears at first value. It's a thinking show. You take it away with you, and those are the best musicals. So thank you very much each.
Thank you so much for having us.
yeah, thank you very much.
Musical Talk. And there we are. That was Julia Joy, Will Thompson Brandt and Samuel MacDonald, three of the creative people behind Savoy, Everybody's Doing It, which you could have seen at the Edinburgh Festival Fringe in 2024. Do go along to the show's website, which is www.savoymusical.com, and with luck, it might tell you in the future about future performances and future productions. But if nothing else, you'll get a beautiful sense of what the show's about. It's a very nicely designed website. Very pleasing on the eye. Well, that brings this episode of Musical Talk to an end. Do join us again next week, or whenever, when we'll be talking about something completely different. But for the time being, suffice for me to say, I'm Thos Ribbits, this has been Musical Talk. Pip pip. This episode of Musical Talk, edited and presented by Thos Ribbits. Copyright Musical Talk 2026. To find out more about the world of Musical Talk and listen to past episodes, go along to our website www.musicaltalk.co.uk or subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your favourite podcasts. And follow us on all the usual social media networks.
I'm actually gonna just double check our handle.
I have seen this done before.
Yeah.
The number of times I've asked people, I say, "What's your social media? How can people find you?" They go, "I have forgotten." Yes. Because I never go there.
Yeah.